Welcome back to another sci-fi episode where psychology and finances intersect. Today we're going to examine how we think, feel, and behave with money as it revolves around financial stress and what it can lead to. September is Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, so I thought it was timely to present some statistics that we received. And this is not just important for military, but it's also important for all civilian populations, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But where I got this data from two different sources. One is an article by the University of Georgia. There was an article written by Jane Roberts on how financial stress affects mental health. And this covers all of the civilian population, but namely students and what they have seen, and a particular social worker has seen in the student population. But I will tell you that both as a licensed professional counselor and as an accredited financial counselor, financial stress impacts all age groups. So I want you to be sure that you are definitely the right listener for today's episode. The other source of information is going to be coming from the Defense Suicide Prevention Office. There were two epidemiologists that spoke at a one-op continuing education seminar, and I thought to myself as I was listening, this is definitely something I need to share with the masses, because the information is just something that will get us to think differently about how we are approaching our finances and why understanding finances, why building financial knowledge, building financial literacy, and building financial skill serves as a huge buffer to not only mental health issues, but also to suicide. All right, so let me first talk about this article with the University of Georgia today. So a famous social worker, I guess, at the University of Georgia, his name is Gadav Sina, and he stated that there are several young adults where financial stressors are not just about repayment plans and interest rates. It starts with very simple things before you even become a full-fledged adult. And it can lead to, if unchecked, to mental health challenges. And some of the examples that he provided are things that I talk about at length in the sci-fi classes that I present, but also in these episodes on the podcast. And one of them is the burden of debt. And he talks specifically about the age range between 18 and 34. And he talks about it triggering a spectrum, not just one singular, but a spectrum of mental health issues. And in a couple episodes down the line, I have for you some information on economic abuse and the outcome of financial abuse or economic abuse, which is depression, just to give it away. But for this age group with debt specifically, ages 18 to 34, cite stress, anxiety, and severe depression as some of the outcomes of these over-indebtedness issues, or even if it's not over-indebtedness, just the burden of debt alone. And he talks about some of the ways that this age group are incurring debt. And one of those is through credit cards, car loans, student loans. But let me speak specifically about student loans just to start off. I do understand that there are going to be first-generation students. who did not have parents or anyone within their immediate family who attended college. I was that person. I was a first-generation college student. I didn't know the difference between a quarter hour or a semester hour. I struggled when I filled out college applications. It was very difficult for me. And along the same lines, I did not know much about student loans. I did know that there were resources that were available for books and certain types of tuition assistance and even the work program, but I didn't have a lot of knowledge about the actual student loan program. And this is where I really feel for this generation or these younger adults that are just coming in and don't know much about responsible borrowing. A lot of times they have a carrot dangled right in front of them. There's a financial stressor that presented itself. Oh, I don't have enough to meet my car note, or I don't have enough for food. But there's this beautiful dangling carrot where all the students are talking about, oh, well, student loans isn't just for tuition, isn't just for books. It's for everything that you might need while on campus or off campus, anything that's going to help you be successful in achieving your degree. Oh, that's the wrong way to look at student loans. It becomes irresponsible borrowing when you're putting more things on there that are now allowing for you to live a particular lifestyle that you prefer and want, rather than the lifestyle that could have just satisfied or what you needed. So he talks about how this student loan stress is really impacting this age group. Not only that, but credit cards. At this age, particularly from age 18 to around 22, there are these credit card companies that are consistently sending mail offers for credit cards, 0%. And if these consumers at this young age do not fully understand credit, they're likely to really get themselves into a financial pickle pretty quickly, which will lead to undue financial stress, which could also lead to these mental health issues that he's talking about. So, what's driving this crisis? Again, credit cards, student loans, and now let's talk about car loans. It's hard enough for an adult with a fully developed brain to go in to a car dealership and feel confident and comfortable to make a deal. Oh, I know I have so many clients that just brings a lot of undue stress in and of itself. If only our 18-year-olds, our 19-year-olds, our 20-year-olds, if only they knew all the tips and tricks of making that deal and making an honest deal where they're not taken to the cleaners and given a higher interest rate than they really needed, or they promised other things and rolled in some debt that they already had and rolled that into long-term debt for now creating or turning an unsecured debt into secured debt. If you don't understand all those terms, yeah, that's what these 18 to 34-year-olds are experiencing as well. So there's just this lack of financial knowledge, and this is what this social worker was driving home. It's the crisis is not the credit card. The crisis is not the car loan. The crisis is not the student loan. When used responsibly, all three of those vehicles towards independent living and freedom, financial freedom, they can be used as tools to get there. But if not used responsibly, then it leads to financial distress. So there's a difference between stress and distress. Stress is your run-of-the-mill. Everyone knows you're going to experience those stressors. We all have financial stressors, but when we start to experience financial distress, now all of our normal coping strategies and things that have helped us to overcome consistent negative thinking or looping that causes depression, where we get to actually intercept the anxiety and the looping instead of it becoming a full-fledged episode. Now we're moving towards that full-fledged episode. So those are the things that the author and this social worker were talking about. Now, here is something really interesting that I saw in this article. I love that the social worker brings to our attention that the crisis is the lack of financial knowledge. And a survey is cited, the TIAA Institute in 2023 completed a survey with Americans. And only certain Americans were able to answer 48% of the survey questions. So many Americans are suffering from low financial literacy. So let me just state what they said here. I'll give the quote. On average, adults could only answer 48% of the survey questions. What that tells me is that simple personal financial topics could not be explained, could not be defined, and they simply could not answer the questions correctly. You know, I would expect that with investor or investment type questions, but for personal finance, boy, we would want folks to have a firm grasp or understanding. What kind of consequence is involved with a cash advance? If you were to pull a cash advance on a credit card, is it a monthly interest rate or is it a daily interest rate? Well, let me go ahead and put you out of your misery. It is a daily interest rate. And so that's the type of financial education that we need to provide these folks. Just because you have access to a credit card and therefore have access to an ATM where you can pull a cash advance doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea to do that. So this knowledge gap makes every financial decision, and as the author stated, feel overwhelming. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, but there are these cognitive and affective burdens, and cognitive and affective just being fancy words for thinking and feelings. So we put upon ourselves all these burdens within our thought processes and in our emotional state where we've become overburdened and no longer have the mental bandwidth to actually understand our personal finances, because we are consumed by constant worry and confusion. And so I'm sure there are folks in the audience who are thinking, wow, forget the 18 to 34-year-old group. I'm 46 years old, and this is actually resounding with me. I still struggle with understanding personal finances. Well, you're not alone. So one of the things this social worker stated is that preventing financial stress begins with education. And he's advocating for tailored financial literacy programs. And lucky you, especially if you are a soldier or a spouse tied to the military, an airman, a sailor, a Marine, you have access to these financial literacy programs. So the military has found this well before college campuses. And it is now codified. It is by law training that is available, not just available, but mandated for these service members to have during each developmental financial milestone. Entering the military, vesting in TSP or their thrift savings plan, the military's 401k, but it's truly a 403b. First marriage, I shouldn't say first marriage, it's marriage and then first child. So different financial trainings for each developmental stage as these military members and family members move throughout their careers. Another thing that we want to discuss when it comes to financial stress is how we can acknowledge where we are. So it's the same principle when someone finally picks up the phone to call for a mental health appointment. It's the same process where someone picks up the phone to call for a financial appointment. And let me explain that. So usually someone will try their very best to learn on their own or do on their own or experiment on their own ad nauseum before introducing a complete stranger into their life to help them with that problem. So usually what happens is by the time they really needed help, a full year or 2 years have gone by before they actually set foot in your office. And this is something good to know as a parent or an onlooker who wants to help folks with their personal finances. They're not coming in until all of their coping strategies have completely failed them. But we want to get you in before that happens. We want you to talk to someone on campus or someone at your installation, whether it's a military family life counselor or someone like me, a financial readiness program manager who can help you untangle all of that confusion that is surrounding your finances so that you can actually start doing something different. And if you don't have access to someone like me, many banks provide free financial education. Now, sure, banks will want to sell you some of their products, but you just keep gently reminding them that, hey, you're just here for the free education. You want to learn how to safely and responsibly use a credit card. You want to learn how to safely and responsibly purchase a car and not be taken to the cleaners. And you want to learn how to safely and responsibly apply for a student loan and what to put on a student loan. Even your cashiers at the college campus can help you with that information as well. So acknowledge that the debt is there, acknowledge that there's an issue, and then seek the help. Seeking help, as the author states, is not a sign of weakness. And I've been saying that in all of these episodes. So let's continue to help each other and make sure we're doing that. So moving forward to the next topic, financial stressors. Why is this important? Why do we help each other with understanding finances? What does financial literacy have to do with mental health? Well, we kind of talked about it just a little bit from that article. But once financial stress reaches a state of financial distress, there are other powers at play, and there are other things that start to fester that can turn into a mental health crisis, so much so to where someone starts having thoughts of suicide or what we call suicidal ideation. And what these epidemiologists at the Defense Suicide Prevention Office found is that the service member suicide rates and the U.S. population rates for this period of time that we're going to be talking about are pretty similar. And that makes sense because the military is just a subgroup or sampling of the larger population, right? So it makes sense that a lot of the things that were found in this military study as it pertains to financial stressors, it impacts us all, whether we're wearing a uniform or not. So the next one is from 2011 to 2023, active component rates show a clear upward trend. So this is interesting because the next couple of statistics that I'm going to give to you clearly show an increase in suicide. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about what percentage were having issues with finances before the completion. So here's another stat for you. In 2023, total service member suicides rose from 523 from 493 in 2022. And here's another statistic. Active component suicides increased from 331 to 363 with a rate jump from 25.1 to 28.2 per 100,000. And reservist suicide rates edged up as well. And here's another statistic. Military family member suicide rates have also increased from 2011 to 2022. So again, these are stats or points of evidence that remind us when we experience a financial stressor, let's take it seriously. If we see a child struggling with it, if we see a parent struggling with it, if we see a coworker struggling with it, let's help them find the resource so that they do not end up being a statistic themselves. I know this is a somber month, and wait till next month. It's even more somber, but it's information that we need to know and absorb so that we can help ourselves, so that we can help the people that we love and work with. And if you found this podcast episode helpful, please rate and review us wherever you listen. I look forward to providing you further information on financial stress and suicide risk, but also the protective factors that can assist.